New gun legislation signed into law last week in New York State would require background checks for every ammunition purchase and also mandate that handgun permit applicants provide the details of their social media accounts dating back 3 years. Joining us now to discuss is Republican New York City Councilman Joe Borelli. Councilman, thanks so much for coming on today. So let's dive into this legislation here. Checking an applicant's social media history has been talked about in New York for almost 5 years, but it was rushed through a special session of the state legislature in response to that recent SCOTUS ruling that struck down the state's law governing concealed carry permits. What do you think will be the impact of this legislation, and tell me about how it might actually work in practice?
Well, I think, number one, it's remarkable in that the Supreme Court issued a decision essentially saying that New York's laws were treating people on a subjective basis. I myself was denied a concealed carry permit, not because there wasn't any death threats towards me or I was as safe or unsafe as any other poor guy walking on the subway at night, but they denied me a carry permit because I didn't have a cash business. The subjectivity of those laws was at the fundamental question of this Supreme Court case. So now to add this new check of social media is extremely troubling. This is nothing short of a thought police. Keep in mind, we already have laws in every state around the country that determine when free speech crosses a line and actually becomes a threat of imminent harm. At that point, the police can get involved. And at that point, if you want to make a red flag of that, that's one thing. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the browsing of social media to see what people are saying as a perspective to not allow them a constitutional right. This is something that has no precedent in any other state or with respect to any other constitutional right. And I find this the most alarming of all the provisions in New York's new gun law.
The social media element of it. Of course, we've been throughout the show bringing the latest details regarding the tragic Highland Park July 4th shooting. This was, of course, in Illinois, a place that also has very, very strict gun laws on the books. And this individual, this alleged gunman, had a very disturbing social media presence. Perhaps could have raised some red flags. Maybe if you were a family member who was checking in on his social media, you would have seen something and maybe could have said something in that instance. But when it comes to, a regular individual who might use social media here, who would be in charge of really combing through their records and their posts and making a call on whether or not that person should be able to apply for a weapon?
And that really is what's at heart at the problem. I'm one of those people who think you should be able to say pretty horrible things about elected leaders, about people who govern us. I'm one of those people who thinks that the best antidote for restrictions on free speech is actually more free speech. So to use something you've posted on social media as a means of disenfranchising someone of their constitutional right, again, I think it's something we just not have seen in this country at all. Look, that said, if you're the parent of this child, and this child was known to the police, someone who had gotten in trouble and had weapons confiscated from him for making real credible threats to murder his own family, yes, there has to be some check valve to ensure that this person doesn't get a gun. On the other side, we also see how ineffective some of these feel-good laws actually are. Highland Park had an assault weapons ban, a law that banned those high-capacity magazines, just like, by the way, New York has, which the criminals don't seem to follow. All of these feel-good laws don't actually do anything to prevent someone who wants to cause physical harm to others from actually doing that. That should be a concern as well to a lot of Americans.
Right. The individual now facing 7 counts of first-degree murder and likely additional criminal charges will be coming his way, set to make his first appearance in court later today. We'll bring that to our viewers. While we've got you, Councilman Joe Borelli here, can I ask you about a recent tweet from the President of the United States? He's taking note, quite frankly, that there are kids who've fallen behind in their studies. He says this: due to the pandemic, kids are behind in math and reading. We know to help bridge this gap. I'm calling on schools to use American Rescue Plan funds to expand tutoring, summer learning, after-school programs to provide 250,000 more tutors and mentors for our kids. A lot of parents would say, yeah, we know our kids are struggling behind. Teachers would also say the same thing. They notice that their students just aren't up to speed where they should be here. And a lot of that stems from that virtual learning that was in place for so many states and cities across the country. Tell me about your reaction and thoughts to the president's tweet.
It's actually surreal. This is a solution proposed to a problem that they don't want to admit actually happened, and they don't want to take responsibility for. We know that big blue state governors and the federal government under Biden pushed homeschooling and lockdowns and remote learning far more than they needed to. So now to most parents, it's no shocker that this is actually a problem. I personally dropped my son off at a Title I funded camp this morning, basically to catch him up on school. So I'm in favor of the program. I acknowledge that this is something that needs to happen to get our kids back up to grade level. The shame in it is that we're not actually calling out those governors and federal officials who did the bad job of causing these problems by having this system in place far more than it needed to be in 2020 and 2021.
And the teachers unions as well, right? Saying it was too dangerous for some of the teachers to be in-person learning and their students too as well. All right, we're out of time, but do appreciate the conversation as always. Joe Borelli, thanks so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.